So the US Open Cup has had many different formats, many different styles of playing, and many different teams who have come into this tournament, but none like this. But before we get into it, if you guys like the USL Championship, please make sure to give this video a like. It really helps me out. It really helps with the algorithm. It just showcases to other people that the USL Championship exists, and that is ultimately what I want to do with this channel, get that exposure out there. That it is not just the MLS in American soccer. There is so much more out there. But yeah, the US Open Cup is America's longest tournament, which started in 1914, with Brooklyn Field Club being the first team to ever win that tournament. And the beautiful thing about the Open Cup, to bring soccer exposure, to showcase that there are different teams and different clubs to try to compete with one another, and to ultimately claim that you are the best team in the United States. But like I said, this year is going to be different. There's only 8 teams participating in the Open Cup from the MLS, and that is because Don Garber and the owners, Don Garber is just the voice of the owners, but at first they didn't even want to have any MLS team in the tournament. But after going back and forth, they decided that, well, with U.S. Soccer saying no, you had to participate, it seemed like the MLS was going to have every single team in there. But they ultimately came out and told U.S. Soccer that we are only going to have 8 teams participate. And U.S. Soccer said, of course, whatever you want to do, it's fine. Now, the reason that they had said that they were going to do this was because of schedule congestion. There was too much soccer being played for MLS teams that, they didn't want their players to be overwhelmed or overworked. And ever since Messi came in, there's different things that he wanted. And if you're going to bring in one of the biggest stars of the world, you have to cater to what he says. That's an example of what they said, right? Or that is what they claim to have said. But we all know in reality, it was just, there was no money being brought in with the Open Cup. With it being the longest, 10-year tournament, you would have thought there'd be more eyes, but unfortunately, that's not the way it worked out. The Open Cup is one of those things where there was no exposure. There is no exposure. No one really knows about it. Even before, I would argue 5 years ago, that's when I really started watching the MLS, but I didn't even know about the Open Cup. And it wasn't until recently that I started paying way more attention to it. But how can there be exposure if no one is, showing this tournament? And what I mean by that is with different TV stations, there are none. But of course, with the Champions Cup, and that's a tournament that MLS decided to bring in with Liga MX, there's going to be a lot more money in that because those are both very big leagues. Those are the top tier leagues for each country respectively. And we all know that in Mexico, there's a lot more fans for soccer. So MLS in a way was like, hey, let's help each other out. Let's try to get this to grow for one another. Liga MX is huge in Mexico. There's a lot of money in the United States, and MLS needs that exposure, and they want to be able to capitalize in that as well. So how can we work together? Let's make a league together. But unfortunately, there is no league of MLS and Liga MX. So the next best thing is to say, hey, let's make a tournament. And that is what they did. And by doing that, they had to turn their back on the Open Cup. And they opted out to only have 8 teams competing in this tournament. And those 8 teams are Atlanta United, FC Dallas, LAFC, Real Salt Lake, San Jose Earthquakes, Seattle Sounders, Sporting Kansas City, and the defending US Open Cup champions, Houston Dynamo. And you had all USL Championship teams competing in the tournament this year. With not that many teams from the MLS competing in the Open Cup this year, it got me thinking, does it take away, if a USL Championship team wins this year, does it take away the hype of being able to claim that you are better than MLS? And I would argue that it does take away, because you're not fully competing against the best of the best. And what this tournament was about, to showcase that every single team, well, not every single team, but you had to still qualify. But those that did, you got to compete against the top guys. And although it is rare, it still can happen where you have lower league teams beating out higher team. I remember not that long ago, I can't remember, it was a couple years ago, but Union Omaha was able to beat these guys not that long ago, maybe 2 years ago. So it's stuff like that where, that's an MLS team, and a USL League One team was able to beat them. So it's those type of stories that make the Open Cup such a great thing, because a lot of these younger guys, a lot of these lower league guys, they'll never be the Cristiano Ronaldos or whatever, but they get to have that moment where they can showcase, hey, this is what I can do. And now you take that away. So now with the USL Championship team, let's say they win because they're the next guys in the pyramid. They're Division 2. If they win, it's the year when not every single team in the MLS competed. So, yeah, you're the next best thing, but that's kind of expected that you are the supposed to win. So there very well could be a MLS team that still is able to win. And I get that. And if a championship team does win, we should celebrate because they're the guys that said we are still going to compete. And there was a lot of anger when this happened. There was so much anger when the MLS said that they didn't want to do it anymore. I mean, you had Fútbol Americas talking about it. You had different people all over Twitter, different other USL Championship and MLS soccer channels talking about it. This was a huge deal. And it seemed like the U.S. soccer was going to stand their ground and tell MLS, no, you have to compete. You have to do this. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And now we'll see what happens. We'll see how the tournament plays out. There have been very close, shocking games, and that's what you live for when you have these one-game elimination tournaments. And I mean, there still have been some. I mean, in the second round, you had El Farolito beat out Central Valley Fuego 2-1. And they recently played Oakland Roots, and they lost 2-1 in that game. But still, it's those things where you think, oh my gosh, this is incredible. These stories, they truly come out in light. And I think it would have been great to see MLS and USL Championship competing, full teams, and then having a USL Championship win. That's the greatest thing that would have happened. It's a true battle. It's a true competition. There's no, we're not going to send this team or that team. It was supposed to be, the whole tournament was supposed to be that, but the MLS took that away, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens. We'll see who's the champion this year. Like I said, it very well could be a championship side, and that will be a history making. That without a doubt, that will go in the book. So we'll see what happens. But what are your guys' thoughts on the Open Cup this year? Let me know in the comments. Who are you rooting for? Or is your team already out? Guys, thank you so much for your continued support. It really means a lot. Like I said, if you could just like this video, and I'm excited to see what you guys have to say. But with that, I will see you guys all on the next one.